Like, it has all the information, and then it just gives us, like, all this shit totally screwed up. Instead of passing the object that it already had, that had all the information on it. So it's like, well, what the hell? Like, maybe I should make a function to grab the current event off of the widget. So if I go into, like, yeah, that might actually be a lot easier to do. Because we have the geometry and the events and everything like that. Like, I could save it at the start of every function, basically. Yeah, this might be a lot better idea, is to just cache the stuff and then be able to retrieve the cached information ourselves. And that way I can call directly into this thing with the correct stuff. The joys of trying to figure out what the hell we're doing. All right. I think that's actually probably the best thing. So we just go to scene viewport.h. So what are we going to need? We've actually already got our cached geometry, which is good. So what we need is const f pointer event address get cached pointer event. We want the, what, unfocused received? Get cached focus event. We want the pointer events. We want the key down events. So we need the character events. Get cached key event. And we need the const get cached character event. And that should give us everything we need. This will be cached character event. Cached key event. Cached focus event. And cached pointer event. So, I mean, I've kind of been circling around getting an actual solution to all these problems, but this one is starting to seem like a much better solution than a lot of the other garbage. This one is like, okay, we're actually using this as it is. And the reason why probably all this stuff is like this is because they kind of folded two existing systems together. It's like they wrapped Slate around what already existed and didn't change the thing that was inside of it to use all the updated crap. Alright, so we have all these. Now we actually need to set all this crap. Show cursor, set user focus, key state, get mouse X, mouse position, update cached mouse position, cache geometry, process accumulated stuff, virtual desktop, draw viewport, background window, cursor query. This will be cache pointer event equals cursor event. On map cursor. It's a cursor reply. We don't need that. Alright, on left mouse button, so cache pointer event equals in mouse event. Are we caching our geometry? Yeah, okay, good. Alright, so this is on mouse button up. On mouse enter, mouse move, on mouse wheel, on mouse double click, touch. We'll just get these things kind of set up as well as we go down. Motion event's not going to be there. On query focus, on key down. Okay, so we've got the key event. On key up. Analog value changed. Probably don't have to do anything for this one. Well, we kind of will. Well, I'll probably just call into JavaScript directly with some of these things. Alright, so we have the focus events. Alright, so let's go to our, what is this, web browser viewport. .h, which I've got open over here. And I think we just want to call get window. The question is, does the browser already have this or not? Because we're creating our web window. So we should be able to call get window on this thing now. So basically inside of like our UI, we'd be able to call let's see, in browser. So get browser view, and that'll get us our web browser view. Yeah, let's just compile this stuff and see what we got at the moment. But basically we're gonna be able to get our browser window off of this object, and then from inside of our game object we can call into our UI and say like, hey, go do the things you're supposed to do, and it can grab the cached events and call the right functions on the web window. That way we'll be able to proxy all of our stuff and it won't get all confused and angry at us. Why can't things be simple? Like, you know, why can't the Slate stuff just have... Oh, there's so many things. Like, we had to fix the web window being able to scale to the aspect ratio properly. So like the black bars on the top and bottom all lined up, so the UI... Because the camera has that thing where you can add black bars on the side if your window doesn't fit in a certain aspect ratio, which is what you want. But the thing is, the UI doesn't have that built in at all, so it's like, ugh, it's so fucking stupid. So we had to fix that, and then of course when we were doing that, we suddenly realized we couldn't move our character at all. And that was a big problem because, well, if you can't move your character because you clicked on your UI, then like it's a massive thing. We found that was because a lot of events were getting eaten by the WebKit window. And so we've been going down this rabbit hole today, trying to make it so, like, basically we want to be able to process all the events and pass all that stuff onto the WebKit window after we've processed them. So like we always want to grab those events, and if we don't handle them, then pass them on to the window, the web window. And of course, there's no way to do that. There's no way to say like always process our events and then pass it on to this other thing and blah blah blah. So it's just like basically I just want both windows to always process all events. Like that's what I want is. But the system is just not, obviously not set up to do that. And we even found some pretty nasty things in there where the WebKit window was actually eating input and then spitting it back out a frame or multiple frames later, because the WebKit window is running on a separate thread. So basically like capture the input, send it over to the web window thread, see if it handled it, and then send it back, and then spit that back into the main loop later. So like if you moved your controller or something and you had the web window, which the UI is always going to be there, so it could potentially, you know, like there's 30 milliseconds of lag on your controller just right there, which is just unacceptable. So we have get it's S web browser, right? So we're calling get browser view, so it should be of course this isn't exposed for us to be able to get it. Do we want the viewport? Yeah, I guess we also want the browser window. So maybe we can just do that. Just get browser window and the pointer to our window. And we can actually maybe test a few calls. So iWebBrowserWindow.h. This thing's complaining that we didn't know what a web browser is, which is it's because we didn't have the header included for it. So let's go ahead and boot this up and see exactly if we're actually getting what we want. So our browser is there and it's not null, so and we can't interact with it, and we're not screwing up our inputs and all that stuff, so great. Alright, so we can totally recreate all of this stuff and create it inside of our UI.h stuff for us. So let's go to Dashkin UI, and what we want to do is we'll have our input proxy methods. And with these proxy methods on our UI, we're basically going to go through all of our browsers that we have open, and we'll make them work. Well, we need these, and we also need we need it on our HUD, and we also want it on our Windows. So our bridge is down here, and this is our actual window object. for what? For every t-shirt pointer in Windows. So it should look pretty much like this for everything. We'll just pass it through for every window we have open. So let's fix all this up. And I don't think we need to double click. That's just, it wasn't even doing anything for us. Double click doesn't really mean anything for browsers. Alright, so that should do all of that. What is all this complaining about? It's not really complaining, is it? So let's get our web window stuff hooked up. And I can basically lift the old logic out of the other stuff and get it running. So let's see, let's fix our compile errors for this. Well, let's just throw proxy on the end of all these things because I think the names of them are conflicting with a few other things. Let's get rid of the double click since we decided not to use it. So once we got this hooked up, I could just start. I need to call stuff from my game mode, I think. It should be the game viewport client actually, and I'll call into the Dashkin UI once I'm done handling stuff, and that way we'll get our input. It's just taking forever to get this UI stuff hooked up, but whatever. It's a whole browser, right? It's gonna do things. So we need to call. I probably want to call. Probably cache the web browser window pointer. I just hate Slate so much. Like, just all these macros and ugly everything is just makes you want to murder somebody. So we're going to throw these at the top of every function just to protect ourselves from messing ourselves up. And I always do really stupid crap like this when I, like one line if statement with blah in there. Whenever I do that, it's basically to tell myself that, because you should never ever do this. So when you actually see me do that, sort of like, it's like kind of a call sign of like, this code is kind of screwed up. So I try not to hide that fact. Macros are beautiful. Yeah. Behold. the auto-generated structure that is behind this is just garbage town. I much prefer not using fucking macros. Because then you're trying to like figure out how it works behind the scenes. You're like, well, how is this hooked up over here? And then it's all hidden behind just this mountain of garbage. And you're just like, well, I wish there wasn't this mountain of garbage in the way. So let's Which are more evil, templates or macros? I mean, I'd have to say that it depends. But most of the time, macros, as long as they're simple stuff, like, you know, there's some real nice things like info log here is like, this is totally fine. This is a macro which wraps a whole bunch of like format string crap and throws in log lines and all sorts of just trash in there. But it's not really hiding a bunch of logic that anybody gives a damn about. Like, it's hiding stuff that just should magically work and you should never need to mess with. You know, like, so when you're macros are just fine in a lot of cases. It's when you start using macros for things like building out class structure and just getting, you know, simplifying your syntax for constructing something. And it's just like, well, I think somewhere you went off the rails and you're just using this as a gigantic crutch. Templates they have their own sets of evils. The biggest thing with templates I absolutely hate is just like how the code is generated, and I mean, they're pretty much macros. See, I don't have a problem with templates looking like that, like, you know, map of a vector of a template of struct. You know, like that's fine. Like that you can actually read without too much horrifying stuff. It's the debugging for templates and the compile time errors that are just like absolute trash and don't tell you anything about what's actually broken. That's what I think is the biggest issue with templates. You know, the code generation, crapping up your compile times and stuff like that. That sort of stuff can be a real pain in the ass. I don't know. I also did like a whole bunch of Java programming for years and years and years, so the retarded syntax there with braces everywhere, my eyes are completely fine reading that crap after years of Java. So I'm biased towards not seeing that garbage. But templates always just, a lot of it usually smells like a lot of people who go crazy on templates. I think a lot of the time they're either a class of engineer who thinks they're smarter than they are, and they want to make everything reusable because everybody should use their code. So, you know, everything has to be made into this ultra reusable library sort of functionality thing. And then, or they're new to engineering and they just think you should use templates for everything because, you know, being generic is good. And I find a lot of the time that instead of templating something out, a lot of the times what you need is just a good code generation system hooked up to prevent you from copy pasting shit everywhere. And I think the code generation systems are a little bit better than the templates in a lot of ways because you actually get the generated code of that the template would have generated, and you can actually just fucking read it and modify it and step through it and do all that stuff. It's great. So I'd be like, just get a good code generator and don't worry about templating stuff. Unless it's just simple crap, you know, and then it doesn't matter. because it's simple. So who gives a shit? You want code generation built in? Yeah, that would actually be really cool. I would like to see that sort of stuff, because code generation is really damn flexible. Like, I've got a free marker code generation system that I wrote, which I can do all sorts of fun things. I don't know if I've shown any of that crap off, but we basically got this code generation thing where basically it's just like, generator.templatize file, like my copyright, and then header start, and then like header end. So like this will generate like a header file, and everything's all nice and super great. I don't have to worry about it. You just type in your logic states and like, oh, I'm gonna go through all the logic state groups that are in data and generate an enum form and all this stuff. And it's just simple. You don't have to worry about all this crap. And if I go to the actual generated code for all this stuff, here's the generated code stuff that generated it, and just like there you go. And we can add whatever the hell we need in there and make it better. You don't have to worry about horrible compile errors that mean nothing, and then you're like, oh, okay, I need to, a designer needs to add a new logic state group. Well, all they do is go to your data for that thing, and you're just like, all right, well, I'll just add a new logic controller, and there you go. So like designers can just be editing data, and then that gets not reflected into code. It gets generated into code, and then they can just build the thing again, and boom, they've got all their types, and they're all compile time checked, and all that sort of awesome stuff. So you don't have to worry about it. I'm a big fan of code generation, and having that code be real. Like, there's a lot of really good reasons to use it. Like, debugging becomes super easy for generated code. It's just a lot of the times generated code can look really nasty. Like, you get into stuff where you actually have complicated if-else logic and crazy stuff, and then sometimes formatting generated code can be a real pain in the ass. But as I found, FreeMarker did a great job for that. Things like Jinja and Jinja 2 did not. And that was using like Python code generator. FreeMarker is Java code, a Java like web server generator. It's meant for templatizing web pages, but I found that it actually worked a lot better than using Python code generation stuff, mainly because Python code generation stuff very quickly became unmaintainable because you didn't know which references were where, and your Python code it grew a little too big, versus the Java code, which was a lot easier to mess with once you got it up there. Alright, so does this all compile? We got all that running, so what we need to do now is proxy our events through our viewport client. Alright, so do we already have the UI in here anywhere? No, we don't. Yeah, it was pretty funny. We were working on Dragon Age Legends a long, long time ago, like 6 years. We didn't have any code generation or anything like that. We're writing the server in Java and we're writing the client in ActionScript 3. And the problem is, like, it was a server authoritative game, so we needed to, but we didn't want to have wait for the server to, like, it was you're clicking on stuff and like killing monsters and everything. We didn't want to like wait for the server to respond every single time you click something. We would just send your actions to the server, and the server would perform the same actions as the client. So we rewrote all the code in Java and in ActionScript, and as you can understand, that probably led to a shitload of bugs. And you'd be absolutely right, like it did. So this is going to be unfocused lost. And we didn't have a generator or anything else hooked up, so you had to like manually set up everything. New network message, you gotta write the network message, you gotta write it in ActionScript, you gotta write it in Java, you've gotta make sure all the variable names are all the same and all that. You need to write the thing that marshals it into the network layer and then unmarshals it in Java and in ActionScript. And if you missed, like a name or an index or whatever the hell, you're screwed and your network message get corrupted. So it just took forever to do anything. It's just, we're idiots. So our client, our viewport client, needs to get the owning scene thing. So the scene viewport, I think it's scene viewport .h. Right, it's the viewport client though. So and we're looking for the scene viewport. Yeah, there's get game viewport. Get cached focus. Get cache focus event. This will be on focus. Focus received. On input key, let's see, we're going to want the we need to include the scene viewport.h, looks like. going to be on key chart. Let's see. It's going to be get cached geometry and get cached char event. And I think it's this is another pointer event thing. This is on mouse. It's probably not worth anything. Cursor query probably isn't even going to get called, so it doesn't matter. So after we get this, we need to basically take our keys that these guys actually had and figure out what in the hell it was. If it was a mouse event, if it was an up or down, or what. Oh, well, we have mouse enter and leave at least.